at the risk of sounding cliche, I repeat this and I always say it, and I do hope you are going to understand the import. There are three things you must work on if you have to be successful in life. If you don't understand the three, you will have some issues in some aspects of your life. For instance, you must understand academics. In other words, you must know book. What I mean by that is not just head knowledge. You must have the capacity for logic. You must understand algorithms. You must understand how things are put together. You know, you should be able to read and write. So that becomes that, and that's the much it can go, academics. And that's why you go to universities. A lot of professors who have PhDs and multiple PhDs, and a lot of people who are very well read are not as, you know, successful as what they've read. Okay, they're not as successful as their intellect. Then after academics, you must understand the power of businessification. You must understand business. You must understand entrepreneurialization. In other words, you must understand how to turn this your academic knowledge or whatever it is you learned. You must know how to turn it into business. So you are a professor of linguistics, or you understand how to do anything, mechanic, whatever. If you don't know how to take it to the marketplace, no work done, no work at all done. So you must understand the business side of life, and these are scientific. There are steps you can take, and immediately you arrive at that. It's not difficult, only that people don't take time to sit down and learn, and that's why I introduce what I call 10 by 10 learning framework. Now, 10 plus 10 learning framework. What is it? 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening. If you can, 30 minutes in the morning, 30 minutes in the evening, out of 24 hours, just be able to go to YouTube, because YouTube is the biggest university in the world. Go there, learn something. There's what I call themed learning, THEMED, themed learning. In other words, when you want to go online to learn, don't go thinking that you want to just go and learn anything. For every week, have what you want to learn for that week. So this week you are learning how to be a good public speaker. You are learning how to convert your content into intent and be able to monetize it. You are learning growth mechanism for building, you know, wealth online, or you are learning for, you know, family, or how to understand your spouse, or, you know, whatever it is, selling, marketing, or, you know, behavioral psychology, behavioral economics. I've talked about public speaking. I've talked about selling. I've talked about, you know, you are learning just one thing. How to be poor. I gotta see those who've made videos on it. Listen to it. You don't need to accept everything. Just 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the evening. That's perfectly more than enough. Then you go over to, you know, the third one I'm talking about. So I've talked about academics. I've talked about business. Now, the third one is that you must straddle the street. The street is, you know, the smartness that they don't teach us in school. You know, it's in streets that you will learn adaptability, adaptation, you will learn disruption, you will learn trend forecast, trend prediction, you will learn how to analyze the trend. In the street, you will see what will move market and what will not move market. You understand the difference between wants and needs. You will now see how people succeed. You understand the attention economy. In street can teach you quite a lot. When there was no school, street was the school. So school is where you get, you know, generalistic knowledge or generalist knowledge. In school, you get generalist knowledge and then have degrees and get PhDs like us. But you see, school is as good as it can be. Education is what you get in the streets. Education is what you do with what you do with what you know. Because the first person that became an accountant, who taught him? Streets taught. Don't mind me, I'm joking. The first person that became a lawyer, who taught him? The first person that became, you know, a medical doctor, who taught him? The first person that became an economist, who taught him? So the point, I'm an academic, so I know how those fields branch out from another field or whatever. So let's not go into that discussion. I hope you understand what I mean. So the point is, you must understand the street. That's why you see some people who are, you know, in politics, some people who are in markets, and you see them, you know, making a lot of money. Now, a lot of politicians, I don't want to use the T word, a lot of politicians, they're not doing well at all. You know, they're wicked to their countries. But that's not our discussion. Our discussion is that you need that street smartness to be able to do more. And I do hope you can understand these two things. Straddle academics, straddle business, straddle the street. That's the way to become roundedly successful in an economy like ours and in the world generally. See you soon.